Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Back to Brilliance podcast. We're your hosts, Henry and Joseph. Thank you guys for tuning in today. Wherever you're listening, we ask that you subscribe, leave a comment, and review. Helps great people like you find our podcast. So, with that, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into our topic for today. Today, we're talking about living in the present, listening to your gut, and defend your focus. So, with that, I want to bring on our co host, Joseph. Say what's up, Joseph, and go ahead and take us into it, bro.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Yeah, so really, I just want to talk about avoiding living too much in the present or too much in the past or too much in the future, because that takes you away from living in the future or in the present, I'm sorry. And, just protecting your energy or protecting your mind, being comfortable with who you are, and realize when people don't have your best interests in mind.
Good stuff, bro. Yeah, absolutely. We have to protect that. We the thing we don't want to do is always, don't want to look too far into the future, or too far into the past. Staying in the present, it's a skill, and it's not enough people that focus on it. So. What are some tips or some things you have, bro, that you want to share, in dealing with this?
Yeah, so I want to focus on the fact that it's a skill. A lot of people don't even realize that it's a skill. It's something that I took for granted for a long time. It wasn't until I started to get into Zen philosophy back in 2017, 2018, where that's the whole premise of that belief system. It's not living too far in the present, not living too far in the past. I'm sorry, too far in the future or too far in the past. It's all about the present, because the reason why it's called the present is because it's a gift, right? It's a gift to be alive. And so really it's something that people don't realize that they need to practice on, right? Like, you have 1,000 thoughts per day, but not those thoughts are taking you away from being in the present.
No, and those thoughts, those are habits, that formulate because it's stuff that we carry over from the day before, so that leads us into, our next point, is not staying focused on the past, you know what I mean? Or the future, because it really robs you from the presence,
Yeah, really. And so, if you're like, hey, I really, really want this car, and you always think about, oh, I'm going to have a car in the future, I'm going to do this in the future, I'm going to do that in the future, you're never in the present moment. Or vice versa, if you're like, damn, that person was really mean to me, they were really mean to me, I don't like how they treated me, right? You're only looking at the past. And
Right.
not to say that you can't, but don't harp on either or, because that's taking you away from being in the present moment.
True, bro. And we're all guilty of it, guys. Listen, we do
Hmm.
that, you know what I mean? But like there's a saying, you can't go forward if you keep driving looking in the rear view mirror, So the thing
Hmm.
is like, you got to keep pushing through, enjoying the present moment, you know what I mean? And like we said before, celebrating those little victories, that's what helps you stay in the present. Because too many times when we look to the past, we see the failures and we reinforce that. So your presence like this. So we just have to change our mindset, which kind of leads us, into the next point is like, you're just hoping and wishing, for the future, that things are going to get different, but it takes the present time now that you're putting in the efforts and energies and planting those seeds, so to speak, that's going to generate the future that you're looking for.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Because you have to be putting in the actions now. You can't be putting in the actions in the future. You can't, or you don't put actions in the future. You're not putting in actions in the past. You can only do that in the present moment. So, as you're reading a book, you're presently reading a book. As you're driving, you're presently driving. You're not driving in the future. You're not driving in the past. All of that is happening in the present. And so all of your work is only done in the present. And so there's a book called The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or Tolle, however you want to say it. And that's all the book is about, is just the power of now, the power of realizing that you don't have a present, and you don't have or you don't have a future, and you don't have a past. Obviously, again, if you're trying to visualize like a better life or a goal, perfect. But realize when you are in the future or when you are in the past.
Definitely important to focus on the now. You know, again, the when we look at the past, sometimes what happens is, we get stuck in the past, right? And I'm sure you've been around people that all they do is talk about the past, you know?
Hmm.
And it's like, yeah, that's who I used to be, but that's not who I am now, So the present, you have to protect it, guys. It's very important that you protect it, defending your focus. That's what we're talking about. Um, and then the future, the future is going to come irregardless, but it's only going to be the future of what you're planning now in the present. So with that brings us
Exactly.
to our next point, is pretty much being comfortable in your own skin and being good to yourself right now, and what we're saying when we mean that is that, like, you got to be happy where you're at right now. It might not be the best circumstances, but like we always say, the one constant is change. So things are not going to stay the same, but you got to be comfortable, in where you're at right now.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. And just being comfortable in your own skin. If you're not comfortable in your own skin, you're always like, oh, I wish I was this, I wish I was that, or I used to be this, I used to be that, right? The
Mhm.
has-beens or the will-be's, right? But you're not comfortable in who you are right now. And just being good to yourself, like be good to who you are, be good to yourself above all. And what I mean by that is be kind to yourself. Don't put yourself down constantly. Like I keep saying, don't be too negative with yourself. And you can be critical with yourself, but don't be overly critical with yourself.
Definitely. And, that's kind of where that imposter syndrome sets in, sometimes because we're not comfortable in our skin, so to speak. And what that references is, where you're at. So, like we're talking about, this is a skill that you have to acquire, to be in the present, So those things don't come up because you're good at what you do. But sometimes we question it because, again, we look to the past, too far to the past, and we don't feel adequate, right? We look to the future and we don't feel ready. So right now in this time, you have to get yourself ready. Uh, so what do you say on that, bro?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not perfect at it. I've been guilty of it many times, right? Like I say to myself and to others that 2019 was my best year, and best year physically, mentally, all of that. I was in a really good spot, and so I have a bad habit of saying I want that time again, right?
Mm,
So just showing that I'm right there with everyone, right? But I also accept who I am right now, because I can't work with myself if I don't accept who I am right now. If I'm like, oh well, I used to be this, well, what am I right now, right? And so that is what you have to do, is like you could look at the past to take it into the present or even into the future, but you don't have to keep yourself back or hold yourself back from being in the past.
And that's one of our points, bro, is just being yourself right now where you're at. You know what I mean? Like, you can't go back to those old ways. There is some goods and some bads in the past, and it's like, but that time was for that time. Like we keep saying,
Hmm.
seasons change, right? So like, you got to be yourself. That's the key to owning your future at this point. It's like, to get to where you want to be, it's what you do now.
Exactly, yeah. And like we said that previously, you know, you can't build towards anything if you're looking at the past. But also that leads us into the next point, which is not allowing others to influence you and carry the weight of those influences. And so what I want to say on that is, like, if people were like, "Oh, you used to be this, why aren't you that?" Right? That will feed into the negative self-talk or the negative self-image, right? If people were like, "Oh, you used to be so funny. What's wrong with it? What's wrong with you?" Or whatever the case may be, right? And so if you allow people to influence you, you're not living in the present still because you're listening to what was told in the past, even if that was just told to you. Like, even if your mom or your friend just told you that, that is in the past, right?
Right, right. No, and you know what? That reminds me of that's kind of like and it we all have those people around us, you know. It's called like crabs in a bucket mentality. You're trying to get up and they just keep pulling you back to that level. Like, remember when you used to do this? Remember you used to do that? Well, again, what we always say here is the mind that got you here is not going to be the mind that gets you to where you want to be. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes, you just have to look at that and understand, like, hey, they don't want to grow, and that's fine. But you want to grow and you want to do these things. So that's why our topic is living in the present, understanding where you're at, listening to your gut when your gut's telling you, hey, this is just not healthy for me. We need to defend our focus. So with that, they're not bad people, but it's just sometimes people just stay stuck in their ways, and that's what we were talking about, living in the past. So uh, we're looking at the future for a brighter outcome, but it starts now in the present.
Yeah, and it allows you to be steadfast in what you believe and what you're doing, right? So another example would be, if you're an entrepreneur, which our audience is, maybe a year or two ago you were a party animal or you didn't take life seriously, but now that you have a business endeavor, a life endeavor, and you're taking it more seriously, you're going to have to cut back on those bad habits that you had in the past. And so if you made friends from partying, from going to clubs, or whatever the case may be, and now that you're not, people will be like, "Oh, what happened to you? You used to go out all the time." You know, if you allow those people to influence you, they're gonna pull you away from what you want to do. And so, again, just being comfortable in your own skin, owning who you are, you will be able to not allow those people to influence what you're trying to do.
Right. And those are external influences, and you have to look at the internal influences that are going to serve you. And this is kind of what our podcast and our community and everything that we're talking about is, because it's the influences that breed results. The external influences, that's always going to be there, but it's your internal influences, your internal compass, the way you see things. So it's important, that you understand that, like, reading, having these habits of reading, studying, educating, inspiring, getting around people that are doing the things you want to do, or, that birds of a feather flock together, right? So to speak.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, that's really it. And so, even whenever you're networking with people, or me personally, whenever I'm networking with people, you shake hands with everyone, but you don't allow everyone in, right? So you may say hello to everyone, but you're not allowing everyone to you know come to the cookout.
right, right, right. No, and that's what it is, bro. So it's just realizing, not everybody has your best interest in mind, right? So people will tell you, like, different things because that's their objective or their opinion, right? So the thing is you always have to, it goes back to defending your focus, listening to your gut, living in the present right now. So put in those reps, guys, protect your space, so to speak, it's very important.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And let's know when people will tell you a lot of things but do little, right?
Mm.
Or whenever someone is always putting themselves first in the conversation. Just a little personal story. I broke up with someone because of that, because they were always talking about, oh, I'm going to be doing this in the future. I'm going to be doing that. I'm going to be going here and doing that. And it was never we are going to be doing this, right? Or they would always be putting themselves first in the conversation. But it's like, hey, we're a team, it's a we, not a me. And so it's, just knowing or recognizing when people give you small little hints that they're not looking out for your best interests.
No, you're right, bro. And that's the thing. Everybody has something to say, right? Everybody wants to be heard. And that's kind of the way society is. It's like, how loud can I actually be? How loud can I scream? So, that's what social media has kind of done, is it's taken us to a place, where you see, oh, this guy's posting everything, they're posting their meals, they're posting their this, they're posting their that, and we talked about it before. And then you get together with them and you're like, hey, where's this happy go lucky person that I see online,
Yeah.
So it's they're always putting themselves first in all things, and then try to make themselves look better. So that just always stems, from my opinion, from just like a projection, like because of the things you're not taking care of. So I say that it might sound a little negative, but I'm saying it for a positive spin, so that way you understand that, like, this is not who you want to be, right? So you got to put in the efforts, you got to put in all the things to make your outcomes better for your life, because the reality is nobody cares about what goes on in our lives, right? Only we do, and
Exactly.
maybe your parents, maybe, your loved ones, the closest to you, they do, but they have their own lives too that they're concerned with as well. So, it's important that we defend our focus, when it comes down to this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And just again, going back to just trusting your guts, right? Like whenever that person that I gave an example of, I dealt with it for 2 months, and then I was like, you know what? My gut is saying it's not it, because, not only are they not a good partner to me, but they're not even putting me in their visions of the future, right? And so, not only is it a tell that they're not a good person to work with, but they're also, it shows that they're not a good person to be around. And again, you want to not allow people to influence you, but if you are going to allow people to influence you, you want to have good influences around you.
I agree, bro. And that's the thing, and that's what it comes down to, right? Is the communities that you're a part of, the places you're in, you have to protect that time. You have to protect your present moment, you know what I mean? Because there's so many things that are always calling for our attention, in like in the technology world, the AI right now is brand new. It's hitting the market, and it's, we're we're seeing that, like, almost every day, but for sure every week something new is coming out. You know what I mean? So, um, being a the reason why I say that is because it's like protecting our mind, because that can drift us from the important things that we have to take care of. That's my point about it. So even people like that, they have good intentions and stuff like that, but sometimes they can say negative things, and it can offend us, and can affect us in the long term, in the future. So always do your best. Listen to your gut. When you feel it, it too. When you get around people that are negative and stuff like that, you can feel it in your gut. Like, you start getting these feelings, right? So you just have to protect your present moment in time.
Yeah, and this is not to be overly negative, because it's a positive to know that you can trust yourself, right? It's a positive thing to be like, you know what? I don't know what it is about them, but I'm gonna keep, or I'm gonna stay away from them, right? And so just having that ability to trust yourself and your own voice is extremely important, and something that I have had the fortunate thing to do, or like I've had that skill for many years. And so, you know, people always say like, oh, like all of your friends are really good people, or whenever I show my, or introduce my friends to a new friend, it's always smooth because I surround myself with good people. And it's because a lot of the time, whenever I have a bad gut feeling, I'll keep them away a little bit, right? Or I'll let them fizzle out. And I know a lot of people that personally, they'll keep bad people around them because they don't want to be alone, or they feel like they're a good person, but they're not really a good person for them.
I get you. Yeah, and guys, we all deal with these type things, So, with that, like we said, it is a skill, something that you have to learn, and I think those skills, you know, they'll serve you, but you have to put in the reps, right? So it's
Mhm.
being aware, like you're saying, Joseph, just recognizing and knowing that, because as you grow, those people are going to fizzle out. They're going to just, they're going to move away, and that's a natural thing. So my harp on this whole thing is living in the present. We're not looking in the past. Listen to your gut. I'm gonna keep saying it again and defend your focus because it's very important.
Yeah, definitely. And again, just keeping good people around you is so important. And that's something that I've really been trying to focus on in the past year. I hung out with a lot of people that reflected how I felt about myself in the past. And, those people will keep you down. Kevin Trudeau talks about the loser mentality, and I'm not going to go that far, but it's just people that they have a negative outlook on life, right? Like, oh, the bills are coming again. Oh, this or that. Oh, blah 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 blah. Right? Those people that always have something negative to say, or I've even had people like, um, whenever I ask them, "How are you doing?" Almost every time they say, "Oh, not great," or they go into like something that's wrong, right? And so those people like, and I've noticed it because I started talking to a friend that I hadn't talked to in a while, and I was talking to them. I was like, "Wow, it just feels like a drag, or it just feels I could feel the emotional like weight of them talking because they were talking so negatively about everything."
Yeah, those are those woe is me, and that's why we're talking about, guys, is that you have to learn that skill to shut that off. So like when those topics or those people come around and you can start to see the patterns, you already know. It might start high, but then um, you know, it turns into negative. You walk away feeling, like you lost some energy, drained, tired. So this is why we're talking about you defending, your focus, defending your present moment, because those are time robbers. You know what I mean? So definitely want to get yourself around some positive influence. So let's take this to a positive sense. Is These are the tips and tools that we use. I'll tell you what I do, and Joseph can share, as well. So some of the things that I do is, again, I get up in the morning and I read and I do my devotionals, and I meditate on those things for a little bit. And I'll get out there because I got to prepare myself for that day. You know what I mean? So I can't prepare for tomorrow, just for that day, because I know that there's going to be a lot of negative things that are going to come my way. So I try to always find the positive in everything. So I challenge you, just if you do anything, just protect your present, trust your gut, and always, defend your focus. So.
Yeah, definitely. And again, this can sound very negative, but really it's a positive because these are great habits to form, and these are habits that I'm trying to form as we speak. And I've seen a night and day difference on not only how I speak about the world, because I'm around people that have a positive outlook, but also I'm in the present more because that's a skill that I've been practicing for at least 2 years now. And again, just being able to be like, you know what, I'm going to focus right now, right? So, like Henry was saying, a skill, meditation is one of those skills. And so just being able to be like, you know what, I'm going to not even stop thinking, but I'm just going to look at the ground or look at the wall or whatever the case may be for 30 seconds, right? No music, no grabbing my phone, just look at the wall for a minute and being content in that moment.
Well said, brother. Yeah, and with that, guys, if you apply these tips and these tools that we're telling you, it's going to help you in the long run. Even in the present, right? That's what we're talking about, is living in the present. So again, just to recap, listen to your gut. You know when your time is and energies are being sucked away, you have to protect them. So listen to your intuition. That's the gift that's been given to you, so that way you can make wiser choices. Defend your focus. Again, that's going to come by putting in the reps, right? So don't look too far into the past. If you've done certain things and you They didn't serve you. That's okay. It's over. We always look to the past. We can connect the dots and we can see, okay, these are because it wasn't all bad, right? You have some goods in there. So you look at it and you're like, okay, these are the goods that served me. Let me put in some more energy into that in the present, so that way it carries me into the future. And always, always, always celebrate your wins. That way it keeps building that momentum. So that's my take on on these things. Joseph, you have anything to close it out with?
Yeah, I just want to say again, whatever you're focusing on, let it be in the present moment. You could look at the future to give you inspiration. You can look at the past to give you advice on what not to do, but ultimately be in the present. Don't look too far forward, don't look too far back. Just keep walking forward and your life will keep walking forward with you.
Well said. Well said. Thank you, Joseph, for that. Okay, everybody. Thank you again for tuning in. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment and a review. It helps great people like you find our podcast. And with that, we're out. Have a blessed day.
Bye-bye.